You're listening to the Murder Speaks podcast, the show that spills the tea about true crime. Here's your host, Wendy Hinbest.
Hey, welcome back to Murder Speaks with your host, Wendy.
And co-host Brent. My job, as always, is to represent the audience, to ask questions, and to try and help fill out the narrative. I think before we jump into the episode this week, we actually just want to say thanks to our I guess we'll say fans, subscribers anyways. We had a nice little bump in subscribers from last week, so we're happy to see that. And one in particular, a gentleman named
Paul
from North Carolina, sent us some constructive criticism, which is something that we are actively looking for. So if anybody else has some, we'd like it as well. So Paul, we just want to say thank you very much, and we're going to try and incorporate that into the show. Obviously, it's going to take us a little time to feel out around the edges of how we do this and how we produce the show, but all constructive criticism is welcomed, and we will be taking it seriously, and where it makes sense, we will definitely be incorporating it into the show. And so we just want to say thank you very much for that, and to anybody else that feels that they've got something to contribute that they think may make the show sound better, we are very open to suggestions.
Most definitely. Thank you so much, everyone, for your support. We really appreciate it.
For sure.
Okay, so let's get into today's case. So today's true crime story is about 27-year-old Peggy Klinke. It was 1998. Peggy's family lived in Poland, Ohio. She moved from Ohio to Albuquerque, New Mexico in the hopes of enrolling in medical school at the University of New Mexico. She was very close to her family, and health was really important to her. She worked out every day and took really good care of herself. People thought Peggy was beautiful. Her insecurity was that people only saw her for her looks and didn't think she was smart enough. She decided she wanted to be a doctor, so she started taking the pre-med classes she needed to get into medical school. At school, she met 34-year-old Patrick Kennedy. They were both older students and were taking the same science and math classes. Patrick was studying to be an engineer, and Peggy and Patrick started to hang out outside of school.
Okay, so even though they were in different programs, some of the courses overlapped, and that's how they met.
Yes.
Okay.
So Patrick was divorced with a child. Patrick was smart, and Peggy was attracted to that. When Peggy wasn't studying, though, she was teaching yoga at a local studio to support herself. So Peggy and Patrick started spending more time together and eventually started dating. December 1998, Peggy went to Ohio to see her family for Christmas. And Patrick was hoping the two of them could do something for Christmas together. But Peggy really wanted to spend time with her family. So she planned on doing something special with Patrick when she got back. So while Peggy was visiting her family a few days before New Year's Eve, the doorbell rang. And it was Patrick.
Stalker much?
She didn't even tell him where her mother lived.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she didn't tell him where she lived.
Wait, how long were they dating?
They weren't dating that long.
But even if you're dating for a few months, like they were going to school together and dating for a few months, you would think that when she was going to Ohio, she would have mentioned. It just seems funny to me that he wouldn't know where the mother lived. But I guess then he found out, and now he's showing up all weird.
Yeah, and she didn't invite him. He just showed up. Peggy was shocked to see him. But even though her family wasn't expecting him, they did their best to make Patrick feel welcome. Patrick tried so hard to make them like him, but everybody felt awkward that he was there. When Peggy and Patrick got back from Ohio, then they moved in together. That's when Peggy found Patrick's gun. Peggy didn't like guns. Neither do I. I don't like guns either.
Well, they're in New Mexico, though. If you're meeting a guy down in New Mexico, Texas, those kind of places, like Arizona, I think is another one too. Like a lot of people down there own guns. If you're going to be freaked out by people that own guns, you're going to be freaked out by I'm assuming more than half the population.
Okay.
Even here, a lot of people own guns. It's not a high percentage, but a lot of people own guns.
Yeah, I guess you have to have. I don't know how it is in Canada. Do you have to have a license? I guess you have to have a license to have a gun, so you do in the States,
It's more restrictive than the States. Yeah, I don't even know if you can have pistols anymore in Canada. I think I remember seeing something about that. You can't even have pistols anymore.
Oh.
But you can still have rifles and shotguns for hunting and stuff, but in the States, there's really no you can have rocket launchers. You can have. I'm not kidding. It depends on the state, but it gets pretty wild. The lack of regulation, but to each their own.
Okay. So after they moved in together, Patrick's behavior started to change. He started to isolate her from her friends, and he became more controlling. He wanted her to know that she belonged to him. Patrick became verbally abusive.
Yeah. This is like the red flags and the escalations that you kind of see in these things normally.
He would call her a slut and say she was stupid. There was a wedding Peggy was going to attend in Ohio. Her best friend was getting married, and Patrick was not invited.
Wait, let me guess. He showed up and he knew exactly where it was, even though she didn't tell him the address? It's like a pattern.
Close, kind of. Patrick found out that Peggy was going to go to the wedding and canceled her flight.
Oh.
And made new flight arrangements for the both of them.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Everywhere Peggy went, Patrick had to be with her. March 2002, after years of dealing with Patrick's verbal abuse and cruel behavior, Peggy decided to leave him. When he was out of the house, Peggy quickly packed up some stuff and left. She called her friend crying, and she told Peggy that she can come to her house because she had a spare bedroom. When Peggy left, Patrick didn't know where she was, and he became very angry.
Yeah. Those kind of controlling guys, like when they feel like, they're not getting that. They'll use words like respect, but that's not what they mean. They mean the control. But as soon as they start to feel like, I'm not able to control this thing anymore, that's what causes them to become enraged. That's what drives the escalation of violence.
Yep.
It's not. I'm not saying it's the person's fault for leaving, but that for controlling people, that's like the pattern that they exhibit.
Yeah, if they feel like they don't have that control over you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. He called her cell phone multiple times, and Peggy tried to move on with her life. She started talking to another guy, and Patrick started stalking her. In spring 2002, Patrick proposed to Peggy.
Jesus.
But she rejected his proposal. So Patrick got revenge. He made flyers with Peggy's picture and wrote things like,
I'm a slut. I'm a whore. I sleep with several men. Call me.
And he put her cell phone number on it.
I don't know. That seems a little immature.
It does. He put them everywhere, including the yoga studio where she worked and her nail salon. Peggy took the flyer to the police and told them Patrick was stalking her.
Yeah.
They told her that it's just a piece of paper and to come back if something happens. Can you believe that? You go to the police because your ex-boyfriend...
How would that not at least be harassment?
I'm saying, so if you're being stalked, the police won't do anything? They just wait until you die?
This is 1998, right?
Yeah.
So, or thereabouts. It's obviously a few years after that. I feel like the laws have changed a lot on this stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think that they've, I don't know what the laws are called, but I'm pretty sure that they've increased, created new laws to help address things like stalking and harassment and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah. Peggy changed her phone number, and Patrick retaliated. Patrick spray painted vulgar graffiti about Peggy on her mother's garage door in Poland, Ohio.
What?
Yeah.
He went all the way to Ohio to write things on her garage door?
He did, on her mom's garage door. June 2002, wow. Peggy and the guy she was seeing were in Florida for her brother's wedding. The guy that Peggy was dating got a call from his neighbor that his house was set on fire. Peggy knew Patrick was responsible. So once again, Peggy went to the police. The police told her that they needed physical evidence that Patrick was responsible.
I mean, at least I at least understand that. Because, you can't just convict somebody without evidence of, the crime. That makes me wonder, the piece of paper with all the stuff on it, was there anything linking directly back to him on that either? Because, I hope these laws have been changed in some fashion, but the problem that the police always have is that they have to have, evidence, concrete evidence that proves that this person did this.
Yeah.
And just, a piece of paper that has mean stuff written on it, even the police would look at that and be like, yeah, we know it's him. We know it's him, but how do we prove it in court? And
we need more evidence.
And then setting the house on fire. But you would think that they must be doing some type of investigation on the house fire. So you would think hopefully that they would come up with something.
So Peggy and her boyfriend spent hours building a case against Patrick for the police. Peggy filed stalking charges against Patrick, and he was arrested but made bail. Peggy decided to leave her job at the yoga studio. Her and her boyfriend decided to leave Albuquerque so Patrick couldn't find her. In August 2002, Peggy and her boyfriend relocated to Turlock, California. Her boyfriend helped her get a job as a pharmaceutical sales rep, and she moved into a small, undisclosed apartment by herself. So Peggy did everything she was supposed to do. She filed a restraining order. She moved out of Albuquerque. And for 11 months, she was being stalked by Patrick.
After she moved?
So, like for 11 months altogether,
Yeah.
she was being stalked by Patrick.
It's funny because now you have a case where one of my biggest pet peeves in these cases is the people that ignore the red flags and the all the concerning behavior and stay in the relationship, and that leads to the violence. But then here you have like the exact opposite of like the person, like she did recognize the red flags. I guess she tried to work it out, and when she couldn't, she moved on with her life. But then now she's got that guy stalking her. So it's, it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing, right?
For sure. So Peggy was waiting for the stalking trial, but it kept getting pushed back.
Yeah, when people hire lawyers, that's what they do. They'll get them, especially if they know they're guilty, they'll get them to keep on pushing the trial back and pushing the trial back, just so they can keep on making that person's life a living hell.
Peggy was always in fear. Then, Patrick used a private investigator and found her. He attacked her.
You would think that a private investigator would be like a licensed thing to do that. And that when somebody comes to you and says, I want you to find this person, the first thing you would do as a private investigator, as part of like the licensing of that, would be like, find out, does this person have a criminal record?
Yeah.
Like first of all, you shouldn't even be allowed to do private investigation work for a person with a violent or with some type of criminal record or charges pending. Like if you have like stalker or abuse or assault charges pending against you, and you shouldn't even be able to hire a private investigator.
Because you're essentially hiring a private investigator to find the person you want to do harm to.
That's what I'm saying.
So like they're helping you find that person so you can do harm to them.
You would think that like a private investigator services would be licensed. Maybe they are. I don't know much about private investigator services, so I don't know. But you would think that they'd be licensed and that there would be rules to follow, and that if you're a private investigator that helps a criminal get in charge. Okay, he's not convicted yet, right? But if you help somebody that's like has pending charges find the victim, that you would like lose your license and potentially face criminal charges yourself.
Yeah. So he used duct tape to bind her wrists together and put tape across her mouth so no one can hear her scream. He took his handgun and slammed it against her skull, and her head was bleeding. She escaped to her neighbor's condo, hid in the bedroom, and called 911.
911 emergency. I have a stalker. He's going to come. He's going to pick me up. He's in my house. 1410, number 118 is looking at. Who's there? Patrick Kennedy. He's beating me up with a gun. He's trying to break it down. Does he have a gun right now? He already beat my head. If you don't get her, he's going to kill both of us. Okay, we're on the way, ma'am. Now.
Yeah, you can hear the terror in their voices on the call. It must feel like it's forever, like to make the phone call and like requesting the police, and they tell you, okay, the police are on their way, but you're like, okay, it's going to take them like at least 10 minutes because like I don't know what the police's state is. Like I don't know if they have all their guns and everything that they need on hand, right? And so you're just waiting for the cops to like get themselves in order, get in the car, drive to the location, and the cops don't just storm in because that's a good way to get killed. Like they have to like secure the outside of the building, and then they start moving in. Like it would take forever to finally see somebody. And when you're so panicked because somebody's pointing a gun at your face and you know they're mentally unstable, it must just feel like it's an eternity.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't imagine.
No, jeez. I literally can't even imagine. Like, it's impossible to try and put yourself, like, in that state because you're like, well, how do you get that panicked? Like, it's so hard to imagine what it's like to be that panicked and be in that situation and that terrified and, like, waiting for help and, like, just knowing it's going to take a long time and this guy's got so much time to kill me before anybody's got a chance.
Exactly. Ugh. So Patrick broke in the apartment and told Peggy to hang up the phone. She was on the phone with 911, and he told her to hang up the phone. A short time after, the SWAT team arrived, and they were standing outside the door. They tried talking to Patrick, but he ignored them. As Peggy was telling the police officer her last messages to her family, because she knew she was going to die. Like, he had her in the room, he had the gun to her head. He knew that she was going to die. So she was telling the police officer last messages to tell her family. And at that point, Patrick shot her in the head, and then he shot himself in the head. Peggy Klinke was brutally murdered by her stalker, Patrick Kennedy, on January 18, 2003. Peggy's sister, Debbie Riddle, in collaboration with members of Congress and the National Center for Victims of Crime, successfully launched the first National Stalking Awareness Month. She began traveling with the Stalking Resource Center and telling Peggy's story to spread the awareness about stalking. Peggy's Law is aimed at helping domestic violence victims escape their abusers.
I think I've actually heard about that law before. Maybe in like certain episodes of like true crime shows that we sometimes watch.
Peggy's Law?
Or something. It feels like it's a name I've heard this like, term before, Peggy's Law. So the SWAT team was right outside the door, or they were outside the apartment building?
So they were right outside the door, and he was in the door was locked, and they were trying to talk to him and tell him, you know, you don't have to do this kind of thing. And he was ignoring them. And so Peggy knew she was going to die. So she's like, tell my sister, I can't remember what she said. I think she said, tell my mother I love her, tell my sister, you know, to name her first daughter after me. Tell my nieces they'll have a guardian angel or something like that. She was basically just relaying her last messages because she knew he was going to kill her. And the funny thing is, I feel like the police failed her, because I mean she did everything she was supposed to do. She went to the police multiple times. You know, she followed the restraining order. She did everything.
I think it's hard to say that the police failed her. I think that the law failed her.
Okay, that's what I meant. Sorry, not the police, the law. That's what I meant to say. The law failed her.
Yeah, because the police probably did. It sounds like the police did everything that they could.
Yeah.
But the police are handcuffed by the law. They can only do what the law permits.
Yes.
And if there's no like laws against stalking or laws against using private eyes to find people, then it's going to be very difficult for the cops to do anything about it. Even when they were there, it's like, you start to think like, why didn't they just kick the door in and go in there and try and shoot the guy? But it's like, kicking a door in isn't as easy as it sounds. Like, it's not like you just hit the door with your foot and the door flies open and then you just shoot the guy like they do in movies. In real life, like, kicking the door probably takes like 2 or 3, 4 kicks to get the door kicked in, and by that time, it takes 1 second to pull a trigger.
He had a weapon, so even if they kicked the door down, as soon as they kicked the door down, he could have just shot her and shot himself.
Not even that. It's like as soon as you heard that first boot hit the door and know that they're coming in, it only takes like 1 second to shoot her, a couple of seconds to recock the gun and shoot himself. Like by the time the cops get the door in, it's all done anyway.
Yes.
But the friend survived? The woman that she went into the apartment that she went into?
He didn't kill the friend. He just
only killed her.
He just wanted to kill her.
Nobody
can have her. No, if he can't have her, nobody can.
At least somebody survived anyway.
Yeah. But I feel bad because I know that she did everything she was supposed to do.
Right.
She left him. She left the country. She
shouldn't leave the country, but she left the state.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant.
But it is funny because it's like, this is a case where, like she actually paid attention to the red flags. She paid attention to the warning signs. She did everything she possibly could to keep herself safe, and it wasn't enough.
No. Well, unfortunately, it wasn't. She did everything, and the law failed her for sure.
And I don't think there's any chance he would have found her I don't know how private eyes work. How they find information? Maybe private eyes have access to information that the general public doesn't.
I don't know, but somehow the investigator found her.
I'm saying, I don't know that Patrick would absolutely not have found her without the PI, but it's hard to imagine how he would have found her without the help of the PI.
Yeah, how would he have known where she was?
Yeah, and I know it's not the PI's fault, but you do kind of wonder why isn't a PI required to do a little background check on the person that's hiring them, and the person that they want them to find, the target of the investigation.
Yeah. To
be able to say this person actually has filed restraining charges against people. I'm not going to give out her information because, if your ex-boyfriend's friend who has no criminal charges against you wants to find you on behalf of his friend, he could hire the PI instead.
Yeah.
But if the PI would look at it and say, "Oh, this woman's actually she has filed stalking charges against somebody," and then moved, no, I'm not going to help you, and I think they should be legally obligated not to help. I can't help you. I'm restricted by law. I would lose my license and face criminal charges myself. And I have to notify law enforcement that you've even approached me about this, so that then law enforcement can then notify Peggy that, hey, your ex is actually looking out for you, or somebody's looking for you.
I'm sure that's probably been changed since then now. I bet you.
Hopefully that's what that Peggy's Law stuff helps to deal with.
I bet you they've probably incorporated that. I don't know for sure, but I bet you maybe they incorporated that into Peggy's Law because, that's a good point. So anyways, that's it, people. Let us know in the comments, what you think of this case and what your thoughts are.
Yep, let us know. And also, just like Paul from North Carolina, let us know if you have any constructive criticism. If I'm talking too much or if I'm mumbling too much, or sometimes I have a tendency to go on tangents when I'm talking about stuff, let me know.
Yeah, and again, we appreciate all of your support.
Yep.
And we do have a Patreon.
Go check it out. Go check out our Patreon channel. There's an extra episode every week. $5 for the month. You get 4 extra episodes. So it's only $1.25 an episode. Sounds like a good deal. It's less than a coffee. Go check it out.
Yes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.